Greetings friends, my name is Pavel Stelmach and now we will dive into the top news of this day. Members of the International Trade Committee approved a proposal to renew the suspension of import duties, anti-dumping duties and safeguards on Ukrainian exports to the European Union for another year, against the background of Russia's war against Ukraine, hampering Ukraine's ability to trade with the rest of the world.
I strongly support renewing the trade liberalization measures that currently help ensure Ukrainian continuity and stability of trade amidst brutal war caused by Russia. These measures are pivotal to strengthening Ukraine's resilience in the present and with an eye toward the future as we work to advance Ukraine's gradual integration in the European Union internal market. Our solidarity with Ukraine is consistent, transparent and rock-solid, which has been further reinforced by Ukraine's European Union candidate status. Ukraine's future is in the European Union. Sandra Kalniete, standing reporter for Ukraine in the European Parliament.
According to the European Commission, the EU is Ukraine's largest trading partner. The European Union accounted for almost 40% of Ukrainian trade in 2021. At the same time, Ukraine is one of the top 15 largest trading partners in the EU. Let me remind you that in May of last year, the Council of the European Union decided to cancel all tariffs and quotas on exports from Ukraine for a year due to the full-scale invasion of Russia. But 2 weeks ago, Poland, Hungary, Slovakia and Bulgaria unilaterally imposed an embargo on Ukrainian grain and other agricultural products, warning that Ukraine's highly productive farmers were competing with their own farming and cutting prices. This is certainly bad for farmers, but it is also good for consumers, who are already suffering from food inflation. Of course, not rocket attacks, but also unpleasant. Countries are now under enormous pressure from their farming lobby groups, who are facing low prices. On Tuesday, several EU agriculture ministers lashed out at trade restrictions from Poland and other countries that violate EU promises to Ukraine and threaten to destroy the single market. Brussels allowed countries to ban the sale of Ukrainian grain and other products on their territory if they lift the embargo and allow Ukrainian exports to be transported to other EU countries. At the same time, the UN World Food Programme is ready to take away from the European Union surplus Ukrainian grain. The organization will deliver these products to countries that need it.
Shipping grain to some of the world's poorest people is critical in this global food crisis. We have been transporting grain from Ukraine via the Black Sea and stand ready to work with the European Commission and member states to find solutions. Martin Frick, director of the World Food Programme Global Offices in Brussels and Berlin, in comment to Politico.
Mr. Frick also noted that the food program has experience in handling the complex logistics of moving large quantities to countries that need it the most. For this, the grain corridor in the Black Sea could also be used, but Russia has been disrupting the movement of ships in recent days, due to the fact that its interests are not taken into account during the transportation of goods. At the same time, Ukraine fulfills all obligations previously agreed with the UN and Turkey as mediators of the deal, and all our partners are well aware of this. The international community must make it clear to Russia that it will not allow it to use food as a weapon ever again. We call on countries around the globe to join our Grain from Ukraine initiative in order to create food hubs in Africa, in particular in those regions which are critically dependent on food imports. NATO countries provided training and armament for more than 9 armed brigades of the armed forces of Ukraine. Jens Stoltenberg, Secretary General of the alliance, announced this. He also said that Ukraine received from the alliance 98% of the promised military assistance, 1,500 armored vehicles, 230 tanks, as well as huge amounts of ammunition. At the same time, we are still in dire need of ammunition. In retaliation for military losses, Russia continues to terrorize Ukrainian civilians by attacking critical infrastructure and residential areas, which result in significant casualties and destruction. Ukraine needs more and faster military aid to deter the aggression, because every phase of the war may be more difficult and important. Ammunition is vital to Ukraine's war effort. Artillery ammunition, especially long-range 155mm shells that can hit Russian targets within 30 kilometers, is our top priority. To protect our infantry and reduce losses, we need more 105 and 155 caliber artillery systems too.
Цими днями проводимо і особливу роботу.
These days, we are also working with our partners to coordinate defense and supply activities. It is very important for Ukraine that everyone who works with us to defend freedom clearly understands what prospects our strength has and what we can do. The better we understand each other, the easier it is to work for a common victory. For obvious reasons, we are not disclosing the details of such communication in public yet.
Meanwhile, the Ukrainian military is not sitting idle. The defense of Bakhmut continues. The battles in this direction are very heavy for every street and every residential building. Our soldiers are not going to surrender, especially since the enemy is losing its best defense and assault forces there.
Поки що просування немає фактично ніякого там.
So far, there is practically no progress. There may be some small ones from our side, from their side. But there are no global roads, because the weather does not allow it. You understand that the wheels of machinery cannot pass through the swamp, only the goose. And the goose does not always solve the problems that are set before us. I don't know what to expect. We will try to somehow move forward, because it's already a time to finish all this. Soon it will be a year and a half as in the war.
We also need infantry fighting vehicles, armored personnel carriers and tanks to protect our soldiers when they break through Russian defense lines. Another important decision is to start training of Ukrainian pilots on F-16 fighters right away. There is no logical reason why Ukraine cannot receive modern Western-style jets, and we are confident that the decision will be made. Ukraine is a defender of Europe. Providing it with F-16 fighters will be the best long-term investment in the country's security. Ukraine uses all of its partners' security assistance in a responsible, transparent and effective manner. Ukraine is grateful to its partners for their military assistance and unwavering support for our freedom struggle. A Gallup poll conducted in 137 countries around the world shows that Russia's image has decreased significantly since the start of the war against Ukraine, despite significant Russian efforts to spread disinformation about the war against Ukraine. The massive shift towards negative attitudes towards Russian leadership demonstrates that the geopolitical significance of Putin's invasion of Ukraine has not gone unnoticed by most of the world, contrary to the opinion spread by Russian diplomats, even in the UN Security Council, that the United States and its allies are the only ones who care about Russia's invasion of Ukraine. The level of disapproval of the activities of the Russian leadership, according to the survey, increased by almost 12 points compared to the 2021 and amounted to 57%. Most importantly, this trend is observed all over the world, in every single region. At the same time, the approval rating of the Russian leadership has fallen to its lowest level since the start of research. The second is now 2014, when Russia annexed Crimea.
The commanding staff, this applies to both the armored force of the Russian Federation and the leadership of the parent bodies of Russia in the Crimea. They, as a rule, have decided with their families. Many have already evacuated their family members, so they know more. Despite all this demonstration of the huge scale of fortification being built, professionals in the occupying administration and the occupying Russian army, they realized that it will not be possible to keep the Crimea.
And yet, despite the war started by the Russian Federation, according to the survey, every fifth respondent still approves of the Kremlin's actions. In particular, if you look at Africa, there is widespread sympathy or neutrality towards the Russian side, as well as towards China and India. Russia has apparently stepped up its activities in Africa. The level of disapproval is highest in high-income democracies. In the US, Canada and Poland, more than 90% disapprove of Moscow's actions. The largest increase in the number of those who disapprove of the Kremlin's actions occurred in Lithuania, from 44% in 2021 to 91% in 2022.
Putin, from the start, has seen EU as an existential threat to his regime, or at least he portrayed it this way to the Russian people. And what we have not done, we have not listened first to Putin and his fascist friends, what they were saying, and second, to people who knew Putin's regime and who knew what it will bring to Europe. And second, you have to know that this war that Putin will wage will be targeting the European Union directly. And at this time, I thought, okay, she's very pessimistic because she is a Russian dissident and journalist, and it's normal to have such a pessimistic view, but maybe it's an exaggeration, and it was not an exaggeration. That was true from the beginning. Do you think he was at war with Chechens, with Georgians, with Syrians, with Ukrainians? No, all the time he was at war against what he called collective West.
The population of Latin America has also changed its attitude towards the Kremlin from 31% to 61% in 2022, and this despite the fact that all of the countries in the region, only Costa Rica joined the sanctions against Moscow. The case of Kazakhstan is also particularly interesting. The approval of the Russian leadership has almost halved. The countries that neighbor Russia that have always been most concerned about Putin's designs and intentions towards them. Remember that Russia invaded Georgia in 2008 and Ukraine back in 2014, and this latest invasion of 2022 further frightened the population of neighboring countries and alienated them from Russia. That concludes our today's video. Thank you for watching and stay tuned for future videos. Goodbye.